Hello, people. All right, let's get this thing going, shall we? Shall we? Okay, give me 2 seconds here. Close up that. Get this here. Have this. Come over here. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Bum 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 bum. Ba-da-ba-ba. All right, people, let's get this going, shall we? Okay. Are we live? Looks like we're live. Let me give a thumbs up. We're live, people. Okay, sweet. All right. Just had to make sure we're live. Okay, no audio feedback, no nothing, no nonsense. Okay, let's get into this stream. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another stream. This is GVS, where I cover all things sports. Let's get to the topic at hand, and let me give my personal post-game reaction and review, ranking, whatever you want to call it, to what we saw today, where the Miami Hurricanes, as the 10 seed, ended up pulling the upset and beating the number two seed Ohio State Buckeyes. Even though, you know, a lot of people debated probably, oh, should Ohio State have been the number 2 seed and whatever, so on and so forth, just because of how, you know, we changed the playoff rankings last year in the format of whatever. Anyways, there's 12 teams going into it. The number 2 team was Ohio State. They did not play like the number 2 team, which is why they lost tonight 24-14. Now, what I will give credit for and say, because I think when people talk about it and when it kind of goes down in the, what's the word I'm looking for? The archives, or just like the history of this game and what we saw. Hold on, let me type something. Type this out here. Why am I not? There we go. Sweet. Okay, baby. Okay, baby. It's all about the you. But when like people who watched this game with and just combed over it and watched it to a fine detail, there was a moment where Ohio State at one point did have this 17-14, and the momentum was swinging back in their favor, which I want to, I do it. Look at this little graph right here. Look how the graph is. Oh boy, they're running away with it. It's around halftime here. We're in the third quarter, and then whoop, right here after Julian Saints pass on fourth down, mind you. Touchdown to Jeremiah Smith, and oh boy, here we go. It's 14-17. I personally, when that play came up, my exact reaction to that play was, oh, you got to kick the field goal here, because I know the kicker shanked it earlier, but dude, that was a 50-yarder. That was a 50-yarder. This one would have been a 30-yarder. It's 20 yards closer. It's like, at least get points. I'll bite my tongue. Because what ended up happening, the coach who's coaching in the game made the right choice, and they ended up going for it, which led to a touchdown ultimately to get them back in this game. Okay, we're all live. Everything's going. Everything's good. Okay, so let's continue, and just I give my own personal reaction to what had transpired today and what I saw. One thing I will say, the first thing off the docket, not to, hey, pat myself on the back and give myself a good game here, is I predicted this. I know I didn't do an official reaction and an official video to post a video or do a stream. I didn't do an actual official one for round 2, but if you've been following me, which by the way, be sure to hit that like button and sub button so you know where to come back to for sports. I appreciate it. Look at that plug right there. See that segue? See, I'm a pro. I can do this. No, but I think when you watched, if you watched my playoff reaction prediction and stuff, I made a prediction forever ago. And one of the predictions that I had was it took me about an hour and a half to get around to it. And one of the predictions I had was one of the biggest games of the whole playoff. If Ole Miss is playing Georgia next round, if Oregon ends up getting the upset and then they get past Texas Tech to go play Indiana, if they meet up there in the semifinal for their personal in-season rematch, one of the biggest games that's going to happen is Miami when they play Ohio State, because this will be Miami coming off of the upset against Texas A&M. I called that 3 weeks ago. Okay, you can go watch the stream. It took me an hour and a half to get around to it, and I predicted it. And in a long shot, one of my predictions is I'm thinking Georgia and Miami are going to play each other because it would complete the story arc of Carson Beck getting revenge against Georgia because, Georgia did him dirty by letting him walk. No, he was a grad transfer. He decided to spend his last year of eligibility with Miami. And I think the other thing too is I don't know about like the whole ins and outs of recovery from injury. He chose to transfer out. We know, like with watching history, we know that we know he had ties to Miami, which is why he went there. But I think it'd just be cool to see Miami go against Georgia in the next round, which is why I predicted it. But coming into this game, we have seen that the teams now they are 0-5. The teams that sit the first week and just chill back, kick their hands up and watch, they're 0-5 now. And I think there's parts of me that think you can't overlook another game and putting another game under your belt, because I'm thinking them being able to go to Kyle Field and beat the Aggies and go up against the 12th man in that huge raucous stadium environment where the winds were terrible. They set a record for missed field goals. It was a bar fight basically, for lack of a better term, to turn around and use that momentum of just like the locker room and everything. You want to talk about all the ups and downs of team camaraderie, but with how sloppy that game was, for them to come together, win it, I definitely think a little bit of momentum from that game rolled over into this game, because Ohio State hasn't played in basically a month. They played on the 2nd of December, if I'm not mistaken. 2nd or 3rd, beginning, they played Thanksgiving weekend against Michigan, whooped up on them, and then they played Indiana, and then they lost to Indiana, and they hadn't played since. But, Miami, and again, they've had the same number of practice days, rest days, and all that. The only difference is Miami played another game and probably got back into the mojo of, this is what it's like when we're hitting pads and we're getting back into the groove thing. So that's one thing where I'm kind of saying maybe that's why Miami won, but not to be, no, that's why. Like, it's an overlook. And it's a stretch. Like, I think what was won today was the trenches, and obviously this came down to the trenches. One thing that I did not see happening was the 14-0 start to this game. Like, I did not think that would have been how this thing started. Like, we knew that Curry was going to get after it. We knew that Bain was going to get after it. And we knew that there were a lot of all-stars on both sides of the ball defensively. And that is what we saw. Because the score doesn't indicate it as much, but the touchdown that Miami scored at the very end of the game, it was icing on the cake. Like, it was a garbage time touchdown. If you watch the replay, defense kind of didn't do anything because they were trying to get the ball back because there was a minute left to go. And I think they were running that strategy of, hey, we'll ice this thing here and let them go by so we can try to quickly score. But then Sayan ended up throwing the interception with like 30 seconds or something to seal the game. But I think the start of the game definitely, that pick six flipped the game for the majority of it, because what I noticed in the first half was that all quarterbacks get rattled. I mean, obviously, you looked at Marcel Reed. You look at, I'm trying to think of the Ole Miss to Tulane game. Dante Moore a little bit there in the second half of the JMU game, even though it was out of reach. But a lot of the quarterbacks, and even Beck last week when he played the Aggies, a lot of the quarterbacks got rattled, and it's what they did from there. And one thing that I will give Julian Saget credit for is after he got rattled, he did get back into the game. I mean, statistically, when you want to look at the stats, who had a better game? Arguably Julian Saget. He had a much better game. But what I think the difference in this game was Miami's ability to, when they get the ball, they held on to the ball a lot and for a long time. Off the top of my head, I don't know the exact number and the exact stat. But in the second half, when it comes to possessions, if I'm not mistaken, I think both teams only got the ball 4 or 5 times. And what made it interesting is 2 of them, Ohio State scored touchdowns to make this thing, oh, hey, here we go. But to make it interesting. But when Fletcher, because I will say this because it's one thing that I thought of in the second half is the run defense could not stop anything. Fletcher was breaking off some big runs. Bo Jackson had some runs that I thought was, okay, here we go. Here's Ohio State coming back into this game. Because I feel like what happened was there was a turn right after they made it 7-14. Before they made it 17-14, but when it was still 7-14 in that area, is Miami's offense couldn't get anything done. There was just how many times, like time after time, they'd come up short. They would have to punt it. And then Ohio State would get the ball back and they'd march down the field. And then that's when they ended up scoring again. But I think just both teams, like when we're in the middle of the third quarter, when we're kind of sitting in limbo, Miami had that field goal to extend it and get their 17 points. Miami was playing around with their food too much, and I don't think they capitalized to put this thing out of reach, which led the Buckeyes come back in because the drive. And I will say another thing, and like you look at the stats. I mean, Smith had 157 yards. When this game mattered the most, when they needed a third down conversion, fourth down, whatever it was, Smith had some pretty big plays in this game. And which is funny because you look at what the Texas game was last year. Jeremiah Smith had, 2 targets? Something like that? Crazy they lost. Fun fact, I actually predicted Miami. I really did. I know not a lot of y'all will believe that, which I get that. Here, let me pull up my... let me show y'all. Let me show y'all proof here. Okay, watch this. Let me show y'all. So I made this as a joke forever ago. Well, not forever ago, but a couple weeks ago. Okay, so I made this jokingly. Look at this. Oh, you can't even see it. It's hidden. But oh wait, no. This ain't it. Hold on. Sorry. I'm looking for. Where's my? Let me get. Hold on. Let me pull it up here. Can't give away spoilers for when my next stream is, because I have a thumbnail for it and it's right next to it. Okay, here we go. Okay, look at this. Whoop. Okay, so my stream the other day, I made a joke because I finished the stream. These are my predictions for how I think these next games are going to go. I mean, I'm not shying away from it. I think Oregon can beat Texas Tech, and I think Indiana, it's soft. I'm not like totally 1,000% confident in it, but I think Indiana can beat Bama. But I've been calling for this for the last 3 weeks. Like, this isn't any shocker of whoa, wow, what a huge prediction way out of left field. No, I've called for this for like the last 3 weeks. This isn't too crazy. Okay. Now, let me continue here. Gotta make sure. Okay. But it is kind of crazy that they lost, though. Just considering how a lot of people were talking smack. A lot of people were, oh, dude, Miami has no shot. Miami has no chance in this game. There's no reason an ACC team should be in the college playoff. How are we feeling now? How are we feeling about that statement now? Because I'm still under the... Okay, I will come out. I'll say this. That in my own personal predictions for the 2025 season, my ACC championship game was Clemson, Florida State. Okay, I know it's bad, but I thought Florida State was going to do good. I thought Clemson was going to do good. Okay, all right, sue me. Okay, don't actually sue me. I don't have money. But when the standings came out to where they were, where second place was tied 5 ways, and Miami didn't go, even though they had the best record, it was kind of like, oh, okay, sure, whatever, let Duke go. And then, of course, national media ran with that, and everybody, was like, oh my gosh, the ACC sucks. And it's like, well, the ACC sucks because the representatives that we thought and who we had predicted would be good this year weren't. We thought Florida State was going to be good. We thought Clemson was going to be good, and they weren't. And I saw a lot of people too were kind of leaning towards SMU, which they were like tied. I think they were third or fourth in that 5-way tie. But like Georgia Tech had a sneaky good season, which I think I predicted them. I either predicted them going 10-2 or 9-3, but I thought that the very last game against Georgia would kind of be the be-all say-all, because you look at their strength of schedule, and nobody gave a shit that they beat Clemson by week 8 or week 9. Nobody cared. Which, in that, and in saying that, let me segue to my next point here on Ohio State and why I think they lost this game, and why I'm kind of very curious to see how Indiana and Alabama play tomorrow, because I do think the weather is going to come into factor. But hold with me while I make this assumption. Is Indiana, yes, they went undefeated, but there were a lot of games where they got punched in the mouth. And there were a lot of games that they played very close. And there were a lot of big games and good games. And when I look at this Miami versus Ohio State game, for me personally, I also look at it how I look at the Texas Tech versus Oregon game, where it's like, who has Texas Tech played that has actually given them fits and given them a little bit of a run for their money? Yeah, they played BYU and they embarrassed the Cougars twice. But other than that, those were their biggest games. K-State didn't play them close. K-State also had a bum of a year, and they were injured a lot of the time. And there was just so many laundry list of excuses. They went 7-6, or they went 7-6 or 7-5. But like the teams that should have played, like here, let me pull it up. Let me pull up standings. Let me pull up Texas Tech's schedule here. So the BYU game, obviously, but the game they lost, their biggest game, was this Arizona State game where they lost, because Utah did not give them fits at all. Kansas State, so they're big, like the road tests where it's like, oh my gosh, here we go. This could be a struggle here or not. They just clapped Utah. Okay. Houston, what did Houston end up with on the regular season? Oh, okay, 10-3. Houston didn't give them much of a fight. Arizona State, we saw where Arizona State was during this time of the season. They gave them fits. They ended up beating them. Kansas, a lot of people were riding high on Kansas, and Kansas could have played upset, kind of like how they did last year, where they prevent teams from going to the Big 12. Let's look at where Kansas ended up. Oh, 5-7, kind of a team. Kansas State, another tricky road game. Where did Kansas State end up? 6-6. Where's the other road game? West Virginia, 4-8. West Virginia's biggest win was when they were a two-win team, and they went to Houston and beat Houston on their home field. And that was right after Houston got ranked in the top 25 and so on and so forth. But the other thing that's kind of cool about how the rankings are when you look at this graph is this shows what they were ranked at the time when they played each other. BYU is the only top 10 matchup that they had. You go look at Indiana's schedule, and there were a lot of teams, and there were a lot of games that got played. Sorry, I got to fix my glasses, my bad. There are a lot of games, and there were a lot of teams that played them a lot closer. And Oregon and Indiana both were road tested and tested at home too. Like, Indiana has like maybe one more quality win than Texas Tech, I'll argue, but and their quality win, obviously, probably the Big Ten championship game. Because I'll equal it out. I'll play both sides here, and I'll be like, okay, Indiana's win against Oregon could equal out to Texas Tech's win against BYU. Okay, let that equal out here. But you continue to look at these schedules and stuff. Texas Tech played nobody close. And Ohio State didn't play anybody close either all season. I'll give them credit for beating Washington, Illinois. I'll give them credit for beating Michigan in the Big House. But then when they got tested, when they played Indiana, and it was a low-scoring game, their defense is punching your offense in the mouth. Nothing. Couldn't answer. And there were some key critical stops, too, on defense and stuff. And so that's where I think there's parts of me that, not that this stems back to scheduling, and maybe if Ohio State scheduled tougher opponents in the year, they could have competed against Miami. But, like, there's parts of me that think a 2-loss Miami team that lost their games a little bit later down the line and had to really, like, fight their tail off to even get a shot or a nomination to get to the college playoff, versus a team that ends the regular season undefeated, number 1 overall, the Big Ten, it's yours to lose. Just the expectations of being that much higher, I think, is just that much more, which led to ultimately them, losing, and just the pressure of that building up. But we'll see. Like, there's parts of me that think right now defense is the most important thing, but teams who have been tested. So I know that's a huge rant, but let's continue, shall we? Let's continue, people. That's my thoughts, basically, on the Buckeyes of Ohio State. Let's go back here to the homepage. But what else happened in this game? Other than Miami jumping on them early, 14-0. I think another thing, too, that happened in this game, there's parts of me that think, both defenses played very well. I'll give that. Trying to think if there's any other, like, special teams. Okay, Ohio State missed its field goal, but then it never tried to kick another one. Miami made their field goal. There wasn't any crazy special teams plays, like a huge return for a touchdown. This second turnover was literally the last play of the game by Julian Sain. There's parts of me that kind of think, I'm sort of leaning towards, could this game have been a little different if there was just a little bit more experience at the quarterback for Julian Sain? And that's not to say that he's not experienced enough, because clearly he is. Like, what he did, there's a reason why he was nominated for the Heisman. There's a reason why they went undefeated. Like, clearly it's not, because if I were to compare him to another young quarterback that he's probably not going to get compared to, but you look at other young quarterbacks that played college football this fall, Bear Bachmeier, Arch Manning, Bryce Underwood. Those are the big ones in the big spotlight. CJ Carr for Notre Dame. Yeah, he played better than all of them. He did. Now that could also be due to the weapons that was around him, because, dude, you got a pretty decent running back room with you. You're throwing a Carnell Tate, you're throwing a Enos, you're throwing a Jeremiah Smith, like that. Hey, we're eating good, okay? But other than that, that's kind of my reaction to the whole game and the game as a whole. Is I think the Buckeyes had more to lose with this one, all things considered, and I think the other thing too, because you throw the garbage time touchdown away because it was 17-14. That pick six did turn the game on its head, because the reason why it turned it on its head was some of the things that needed to transpire in the first half, like, hey, let's just get some damn points here, whether it's a touchdown or a field goal. Ohio State couldn't do that. And so, in a sense, there's parts of me that think if there were if there was another quarter, because I do feel like the touchdown that made it 24 icing on the cake, it did seal the game. But I'm kind of getting the vibe same with when Ohio State played Notre Dame. If there was another quarter to be played here, there's parts of me that does think Ohio State's coming back. And this isn't from the point of view of me being an Ohio State fan, because I was riding with the Hurricanes. You know, you saw me pull up my prediction. Like, I think Miami's going to play Georgia. And there's parts of me where it's like, damn, I wouldn't, you know what? Oregon and the U. What if that's what the national championship is? Because what if Bama plays upset tomorrow in Pasadena, and for the second year in a row, the number one team just gets boat raced, and then we have Bama versus Oregon, the only team that sat the first week and got a first round bye that won was Georgia. We'll see. We'll see. Woo! Running out of breath here. I gotta take a swig. Sorry, people. Lips are getting dry. Been yapping too much. But we'll end the stream here, though. That's my thoughts and my reactions to the first playoff game here in the quarterfinal. It was a good game. Damn good game. So here, on the shorts end, we're going to do a hard out here. Get you guys in another one. All right. Okay, we'll do that. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll come over here. Here's what we're going to do. Okay, I was giving a little spoiler because I was talking, hey, let's not spoil anything. Here's what we're going to do. I want to give my ultimate preview, prediction, reaction to Stranger Things and the ultimate last episode, and I was about to say last level. Sorry, I'm fixing shit. Okay, we're good? Okay, we're good. Alright, let's finish that. Wrap that up. Okay, we're good. Alright, sweet. But I wanted to do 3 streams tonight, maybe even 4 if I feel like gaming, but I wanted to do a reaction to the game, a preview for Stranger Things, a reaction to the finale, and then if I still feel like gaming after, give a reaction to the finale, even though it's 10 o'clock at night and I still haven't watched the 2-hour season finale game. So, but we'll see. I gotta end this stream to start the other one back up. But so that's a little fun spoiler for me. So I'll give my reaction to what I think could ultimately be like the final episode. Like, I'll give my reaction and all that when we get to it. But thank you guys for hanging out here. We'll end the stream here, but those are kind of my thoughts on how this game went and my reaction to the Hurricanes beating the Buckeyes. I think Miami's a dangerous team. I really do. I think Miami. I think Oregon. Hate to say it, but Bama. I want to see Indiana beat Bama, but because I don't know, for Indiana to do you see that? I stuttered, my bad. But to see how well Indiana has played all year, and to see them one and done in the postseason, it'd be sad. But if Bama's one of those teams, you can't count them out. And I know we counted them out in a lot of games last season because they lost a lot of games last year. Because I'm trying to, this isn't Nick Saban's Bama team. This is Kalen DeBoer's. This is a whole different thing. But, there's parts of me where Bama has shown it doesn't matter who the coach is. They're still Bama. And like I saw it when they played the Dogs the first time. I saw it a little bit when they came back and beat Oklahoma. So there's parts of me where it's like, we'll see. Because, I mean, bro, they played a damn good game. And that's why they came back against Oklahoma and beat them. Because Oklahoma spotted them. Bama let them spot 17. Still wasn't enough. But we'll end the stream here, guys. I thank you so much for hanging out with me. Let me double check one more thing because I don't want to let's make sure. Oh, okay, yeah. We got it right. But I thank you guys for hanging out with me tonight. That's my reaction to this game with Miami and Ohio State. I thought it was a good game. It turned into a defensive battle because both offenses were struggling at certain points in that game. But I think I don't think it's going to change though. Even if Ole Miss beats Georgia or they end up playing Georgia in the next round, like I really think defenses, they're shutting down these quarterbacks and they're making these quarterbacks look suspect and not have these fantastic video game like numbers of games. But probably I think from the remaining games that are left in the slate with Ole Miss, Georgia, Indiana, Bama, and then Oregon, Texas Tech, I think the highest scoring game will probably be the Oregon one against Texas Tech because look how, okay, again, they threw out some of their starters and subbed a lot of guys in to get them reps and experience. Plus, the game was out of reach anyway against JMU. But Oregon still kind of played with their food and let a lot of touchdowns go by. And that was against JMU. This is against Texas Tech, who have, put belt to ass on a lot of teams and blown them out. So there's parts of me where it's like, I don't think any of the defenses are stopping anybody, tomorrow. Like, I think Morton could have 2 touchdowns, maybe 3. I think Dante Moore could have 3 or 4 touchdowns. I think Tariq could have a touchdown. I think Whitfield could have a touch. Like, there's parts of me where, like, you name any star player on Oregon's offense. Yeah, I think they could have a touchdown. I think there could be a pick 6. How crazy would that be if there's another pick 6? Because we saw one today. What if Bama has another pick 6, like how they did against Oklahoma? Mendoza, now that I say it, I'm jinxing it. Mendoza wasn't as careless with the football as Mateer was this season. But I've already said too much. I'm going to spoil it and jinx him. But we'll end the stream here, guys. Thank you for watching. Be sure to tune in if you want to my Stranger Things reaction and preview. And then maybe a post-reaction to the season finale. But that's my thoughts on Miami and Ohio State. And we'll just see how the rest of this thing goes. Again, so there's no confusion. I'm rooting for the Ducks tomorrow. I'm rooting for the Hoosiers tomorrow. And I'm rooting for the Dogs tomorrow. Those are some of my predictions. Still riding high on IU and a Georgia National Championship. Even though when I said Miami and Oregon out loud, it was like, yeah, that feels good. That feels good. But, dude, who the hell knows? But I'll see you guys in another stream. Peace.